The battlefield was quiet now, but the silence was heavy with the weight of past violence. Smoke curled lazily from the cratered ground, carrying with it the scent of scorched metal and alien flesh. Among the wreckage, one figure lay motionless. Her armor was cracked, and one of her limbs hung at an unnatural angle. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, strained breaths. She was Kayla, a warrior of her people, known for her strength and ferocity, now left to die. She had fought bravely, standing against impossible odds, but her body had betrayed her. The attack had been brutal, a surprise strike that had targeted her spine and nerves, leaving her paralyzed from the waist down. Her comrades, her own kind, had seen her struggle and judged her broken. One by one, they had left her behind, retreating to fight another day, leaving her alone in the barren wasteland. Kayla's mind churned with anger, pain, and confusion. She had been trained to endure, to fight even when the odds were stacked against her, but this helplessness was a new kind of torture. Every sound of movement in the distance, every shadow of passing creatures made her tense. She wanted to move, to fight back, to show that she was not defeated, but her body would not obey. The sharp sting of failure gnawed at her. The days blurred together. The sun rose and fell, casting harsh light on her broken form. Hunger and thirst began to claw at her, but Kayla forced herself to stay conscious, unwilling to give her enemies or herself the satisfaction of her death. She thought of her people, of the battlefield they had abandoned. She wondered if any of them had survived. The thought of revenge, of proving herself, flickered in her mind, but without her strength it seemed impossible. Then one day a small glint in the distance caught her eye. At first she thought it was a trick of the light, a reflection from a shard of metal among the debris. But as it grew closer, she realized it was a ship. Not one of her people, not one of her enemies, but something smaller, unfamiliar. She could not move, could not even lift her head fully, but her senses sharpened. The ship's engines hummed a quiet, steady rhythm as it descended. A figure emerged from the ship, moving carefully across the uneven terrain. He was human, she could tell from the shape of his body and the cautious way he stepped. Humans were weaker, smaller, fragile compared to her species, but there was something in his movements, a determination, a careful respect for the environment that caught her attention. He approached slowly, scanning the ground as if expecting danger at every step. Kayla's instincts screamed at her to be wary, to strike before she could be struck. She tried to lift her arm to raise her weapon, but her body refused. Fear and frustration boiled inside her. The human was too close, too deliberate. He knelt beside her, examining her with tools she did not recognize. His eyes, however, were calm, not filled with the hunger of a predator. "You're alive," he said softly, almost to himself. "You're not going to die here, not today." Humans were known for their caution, their tendency to flee from danger, not to face it for someone else's sake. The human worked quickly but carefully. He adjusted straps, applied strange, glowing patches to her body, and checked her breathing and pulse. Kayla felt warmth spread through her chest, a strange relief she could not explain. Her body ached and the pain was sharp in places, but there was no malicious intent behind his actions. Hours passed. Kayla remained still, observing. Her mind wandered between suspicion and something she could not name. Humans were fragile, yes, but there was a resilience here she had not seen in many of her own kind. This human refused to give up on her, refused to leave her behind like everyone else had. Finally, he spoke again. "We'll get you out of here. You're stronger than you know, but you need help. Let me help you." Yet trapped in her own body, she had no choice. The human's words stirred something inside her, a recognition that strength was not just in muscle or skill, but in trust and connection. The process of moving her onto the ship was slow and careful. Every step caused pain, and every adjustment reminded her of her vulnerability. She wanted to resist, to assert control, but the human's calm and deliberate care prevented her from lashing out. She felt something she had not felt in years, safety, if only partial. Once aboard the ship, the environment was strange. Lights glowed softly, and the hum of machinery was steady and soothing. The human, whom she learned was named Ethan, guided her to a reclining platform. Strange devices hovered around her, scanning her body, analyzing her injuries. Kayla had no words for what they were, but the precision and efficiency impressed her. Days turned into nights aboard the ship, though without the usual markers of time, Kayla lost track. Ethan worked tirelessly, alternating between complex medical procedures and gentle, quiet conversation. He told her about his world, about humans' approach to healing and problem-solving. Kayla listened, sometimes incredulous, sometimes intrigued. She began to notice small changes in her body. Fingers twitched where they had been still. Muscles responded to thought. The sharp, constant pain dulled. It was subtle, but it was real. Her hope, long buried under anger and despair, began to grow. She tested herself, moving a hand slightly, flexing a foot, and felt a surge of triumph. Ethan never pushed her. He waited patiently, encouraging her when she succeeded, gently supporting her when she failed. He did not see her as a weapon, a prize, or a tool. He saw her as a being in need of care, and that simple recognition made her heart, if her species even used that word, shift in ways she could not have predicted. One evening, as the ship glided over a barren landscape, Kayla reflected on the strangeness of her situation. She, a warrior trained to rely only on herself, had survived only because a human chose to act where her own people had abandoned her. There was no pride in that realization, only a reluctant acknowledgement of truth. Humans were not weak. They were patient, persistent, and capable of acts that required courage she had never measured. For the first time in weeks, she slept without fear, though not fully. Her mind was still restless, replaying battles and betrayals, but beneath it all was a quiet gratitude she could not name. She had been left to die, yet here she was, alive because of a human who had refused to look away. When she awoke, she tested her limbs again. A hand lifted, then her arm, and finally a small step of her leg. Pain and weakness remained, but the progress was undeniable. She met Ethan's gaze, and for the first time she saw a reflection of possibility. Recovery, strength, and perhaps even a partnership she had never imagined. The ship moved on through the stars, carrying her away from the battlefield that had once promised only death. The galaxy beyond was unknown, full of danger, challenges, and opportunities. Kayla's mind sharpened with the realization that survival would require more than brute strength. It would require strategy, patience, and learning from someone utterly unlike herself. Ethan spoke again, quietly, almost as if reading her thoughts. "You'll walk again. You'll fight again. But it won't just be your strength that wins. It'll be your mind, and sometimes it'll be trust in others." The ship continued its journey, stars stretching past the windows like ribbons of light. Kayla lay on the platform, feeling movement return to her body, slowly, painfully, but undeniably. And as she stared out at the endless expanse, a quiet determination settled within her. She would survive. She would heal. And when the time came, she would rise stronger than ever, not just as a warrior, but as something more. Because for the first time in her life, she had seen what humans could do, and that was a force even she could not ignore. The battlefield was behind her. The future was ahead. And for the first time, Kayla felt ready to meet it. The days aboard the ship blended together, but each day brought progress, slow and steady. Kayla lay on the healing platform, her body sore, muscles stiff, and nerves buzzing with sensations she had not felt in months. Each flicker of movement was both victory and frustration, a reminder of how far she had fallen and how much work lay ahead. Ethan moved around her with quiet efficiency, adjusting equipment, applying treatments, and observing every tiny response from her body. Kayla watched him carefully. His movements were precise, deliberate, yet gentle. There was no rush, no impatience. Humans, she thought, were strange creatures, fragile yet unyielding. She had underestimated them before, judging them by size and strength, but Ethan's care was teaching her a different kind of power, one that came not from muscle or weaponry, but from patience, persistence, and thought. She attempted to speak, her throat dry from disuse. "Why, help me?" The words came slowly, each syllable a struggle. Ethan looked up from the scanning device, his eyes calm. "Because you deserve it," he said simply. "I don't leave anyone behind, no matter who they are. And right now, you're broken, but that doesn't mean you're lost." The first major breakthrough came unexpectedly. Ethan adjusted a set of neural stimulators, sending a gentle pulse through her legs. Kayla flinched at the sensation, a mix of pain and awakening. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, one foot twitched. She gasped. "You felt that?" Ethan asked, leaning closer. Kayla focused, willing her muscles to respond again. Her foot lifted slightly off the platform. Her heart, if her species could call it that, raced with exhilaration. She tried again, slightly higher this time. A flicker of triumph flashed across her face. "That's it," Ethan said softly. "Small steps, but steps nonetheless. You're doing it." Each movement was exhausting, each attempt a battle against her own body, against months of paralysis. Kayla's frustration flared often, and more than once she shouted in anger, her voice echoing through the empty cabin. Yet Ethan remained patient, encouraging her, guiding her. "You're stronger than you think," he said during one session. "Don't fight the pain, work with it. Let it teach you what you can do." Kayla was learning not only to move, but to trust the human beside her. Ethan did not pity her. He treated her as an equal, albeit a wounded one. He spoke to her about human techniques, strategies for healing, and the way humans solved problems creatively. She listened, skeptical at first, but gradually intrigued. There was wisdom here, a kind of cleverness her people had dismissed. One evening, as the ship drifted above a rocky orange planet, Kayla found herself staring at the vast expanse below. "Do humans always do this?" she asked quietly. "Help strangers even when there is no gain." Her people had never seen weakness as an opportunity for kindness. They had left her to die because it was convenient, because she was no longer useful. But this human had risked his time, his safety, for someone he barely knew. There was strength in that, real strength, not just power. Her physical progress accelerated after that day. She could sit upright with assistance, then lean on supports, then shift her weight onto her legs. Each accomplishment was a mixture of pain, triumph, and disbelief. She discovered muscles she had forgotten, nerves that tingled with new life. And with each small victory, she felt her spirit grow stronger, her mind sharper. One afternoon, the ship's sensors detected a small group of hostile creatures scavenging on the planet below. Kayla's warrior instincts surged, her pulse quickening. "What are they?" she asked, her voice steady now, a new confidence underlying it. "Scavengers," Ethan replied. "They're small but dangerous if they see you as a target. Stay seated for now." Her body was still not fully healed, but she felt something stirring, a combination of curiosity, excitement, and a warrior's instinct. "I can stand," she said, almost as if testing the words on herself. "I need to." It was slow, shaky, and painful. Her legs screamed in protest, her balance wavered, but she stood. For the first time since the battlefield, she felt the ground beneath her feet, solid, real, empowering. She could feel her strength returning, not fully, but enough to test it, enough to feel hope. The scavengers below noticed the ship. They began to move toward it, drawn by curiosity or hunger. Kayla's body tensed. She could not run, not yet, but her mind began to think, to strategize. She observed their movements, their patterns, and instinctively formulated a plan. Ethan watched her closely, sensing the shift in her demeanor. "You're thinking," he said. "Use it, trust your mind." She could not leap or strike like before, but she could guide, direct, and manipulate her environment. Using the ship's equipment and her partial mobility, she created barriers and distractions that confused the scavengers. They hesitated, unsure how to approach. Her hands, once weak, now moved with precision. She triggered devices, activated lights, and sent controlled energy pulses that forced the creatures to retreat. It was not brute strength, but strategy. Her mind working with her recovering body, and the human who had taught her patience and problem-solving. When the last scavenger fled, Kayla sank back onto the platform, breathing heavily. Ethan helped her sit, his expression one of quiet pride. "That was impressive," he said. "You didn't just survive, you adapted, you led." Her mind, her instincts, and her spirit were growing stronger because of the human beside her. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the ship. Her body was still sore, still weak in places, but she felt alive in a way she had not since the battlefield. The human had not only healed her body, but opened her mind to new possibilities. Trust, patience, strategy, these were tools she had never valued, yet they now seemed essential. Ethan worked beside her quietly, checking systems, monitoring her vitals, speaking softly when necessary. Kayla had learned to read his movements, to anticipate his care, and a bond formed, not of dependence, but of mutual respect. She was learning to be human in small ways without losing herself as a warrior. By the end of the second week, Kayla could walk short distances with support. Her confidence grew alongside her strength. She tested her body, pushing slightly further each time, discovering the limits of pain, endurance, and determination. Each step was a declaration that she would not remain a victim, that she would rise stronger, not just physically but mentally. Ethan watched her, guiding but not forcing. "Every step counts," he reminded her. "It's not about speed, it's about persistence. You've survived much worse than pain." She no longer felt bitterness as sharp as before. She felt clarity. Survival was more than revenge. Strength was more than raw power. And humans, this one human, had shown her that. The final hours of the week brought a test. The ship passed over a cliffside on the planet, and Kayla insisted on stepping outside with Ethan's support. The wind tugged at her, the height dizzying, but she stood, legs trembling but determined. She felt the sun on her face, the ground beneath her feet, and a sense of exhilaration surged through her. "I never thought I would feel this again," she whispered. Ethan smiled. "It's the first step. There are many more ahead." A journey she would walk, not just to regain her former strength, but to discover something greater. resilience, trust, and the unique power of humans. And as the ship glided onward into the stars, Kayla realized that her recovery had only begun. But with Ethan by her side, she was ready to face it, step by step, learning not only to survive, but to grow stronger in ways she had never imagined. Kayla stood on the deck of the ship, her legs steady now, her body stronger than it had been in months. The wind from the planet below swept against her face, and for the first time she felt alive in more ways than one. The sun cast a golden glow across the rocky landscape, and she could see movement in the distance. It was the first time she had truly observed a world from this perspective, alive, dangerous, and full of possibilities. Ethan stood beside her, scanning the readings on the ship's monitors. "There's a small settlement below," he said. "It's abandoned mostly, but there could be resources we need. I want you to come with me." Kayla marveled at the simplicity and efficiency of the human designs, armor, weapons, and tools crafted not just for strength, but for flexibility and problem-solving. She adjusted her own equipment, noting the differences from her own species, heavier, more rigid designs. Humans favored mobility and adaptability. She had underestimated them. The shuttle touched down near the settlement, and Kayla immediately felt the tension in the air. The structures were crumbling, but signs of life, scattered tools, tracks, and makeshift shelters, suggested recent activity. Kayla's senses sharpened. She could feel every vibration, every subtle change in the wind and the ground. Her instincts as a warrior were returning, enhanced now by human observation and strategy. They stepped out cautiously. Kayla took the lead, moving slowly at first, testing her balance and strength. Her legs responded well, her muscles remembering motions long dormant. Every step was a victory, every small movement a confirmation that she was regaining herself. Suddenly, movement in the shadows caught her eye. A group of scavengers emerged from behind a ruined building, eyes fixed on them. Their intent was clear: they wanted Kayla. Her warrior instincts flared, and for the first time since her paralysis, she felt the surge of adrenaline that came with combat. Ethan raised a hand. "Stay calm," he said. "We can handle this without direct confrontation. Let's see what we can do." She grabbed a metal beam from the ground and swung it with precision. The scavenger went down with a grunt, surprised by the combination of her strength and clever timing. Ethan moved quickly, using devices from his pack. He triggered a small energy pulse that disoriented two more scavengers, giving Kayla space to maneuver. She realized something important: strength alone was not enough. Strategy, timing, and improvisation mattered just as much, and humans excelled at all three. One scavenger managed to flank them, lunging toward Ethan. Kayla reacted instantly, intercepting the creature. She caught it with one hand, threw it to the ground, and kicked it away. Her movements were fluid now, combining alien strength with human-guided tactics. She could feel the joy of combat returning, not the rage that had once fueled her, but a clear, focused exhilaration that came from skill, agility, and teamwork. The rest of the scavengers hesitated, uncertain. Kayla took the opportunity to assess her environment. She saw broken walls, loose cables, and uneven ground. Using these features, she set traps and distractions. A loose cable sparked when nudged, creating a small wall of fire that blocked one attacker. Another stepped into a hole she had noticed in the rubble, tripping and falling. Ethan moved alongside her, providing cover and analyzing the scavengers' patterns. Kayla realized that she had never seen this kind of combat before, not just brute force, but tactical thinking in real time. Humans could anticipate, adapt, and manipulate their surroundings to gain an advantage. It was impressive, and it made her respect him even more. One scavenger, braver than the rest, charged directly at Kayla. She sidestepped, caught its arm, and spun it into a wall. The sound of impact echoed, and the creature staggered before retreating. Kayla's chest heaved with excitement. She had not just survived, she had led, she had strategized, she had won. When the last of the scavengers fled, Kayla stood in the middle of the settlement, breathing heavily but fully in control of her body. Ethan approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. "You fought, you adapted, and you protected both of us." I never thought I would feel this again," she admitted. Alive, in control, not just surviving but acting. She had been strong, yes, but limited in her approach. Humans, she realized, used a different kind of strength, one that included thinking ahead, observing, and using the environment. They were weaker physically, but their minds made them dangerous and valuable allies. She thought of the battlefield, of her comrades who had left her behind, and of the human who had risked his time and safety to save her. For the first time, she felt gratitude without hesitation. not just for life, but for knowledge, guidance, and partnership. Strength was no longer solitary. It was shared. Ethan led her to a small shelter in the settlement, a temporary base of operations. He examined the scavengers' remains and the surrounding area, noting patterns of movement and potential resources. Kayla watched him work, realizing how much she had to learn, not just about humans, but about surviving in a universe that was often cruel and unpredictable. "Tomorrow," Ethan said, "we move further. There's a larger group we need to assess, and you'll need to use everything you've learned. You'll need to trust your body, your mind, and me." That night she lay awake in the small shelter, listening to the quiet hum of the ship's systems and the soft wind outside. Her mind replayed the day's events, the scavengers, the traps, the victory. She realized she was no longer afraid of weakness. She was no longer limited by past injuries. She had adapted, and she had learned to trust. Kayla thought about her people, about the warrior she had once been and the warrior she was becoming. Her strength had been reborn, enhanced by human ingenuity, tempered by strategy and patience. She felt a sense of purpose forming, a determination to continue growing stronger, not just to survive, but to excel in ways she had never imagined. The dawn brought new light, and with it new challenges. Kayla rose, her body stronger than the day before. She stood beside Ethan, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The world below was full of danger, yes, but also opportunity. Every step she took, every movement was a testament to survival, resilience, and growth. Ethan handed her a compact weapon designed to work with her unique physiology. "Use this wisely," he said. "It's not just about power, it's about timing, precision, and thinking ahead." As they descended toward the next area of exploration, Kayla felt anticipation instead of fear. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and often hostile, but she was no longer helpless. She had regained control of her body, learned new strategies, and discovered the unique power of human ingenuity. Together, she and Ethan moved forward, ready to face whatever challenges awaited. Kayla was no longer a victim of circumstance. She was a warrior reborn, stronger, smarter, and guided by a partnership that transcended species. The universe would test her, no doubt, but she was prepared. For the first time in her life, Kayla understood what true survival meant, not merely living, but growing, adapting, and mastering the art of life alongside someone she had once thought weak, but now knew to be extraordinary. The first mission was over, but the journey was just beginning. Kayla had faced danger, tested her new skills, and discovered the power of trust and strategy. She had learned that even a paralyzed warrior could rise again with the right guidance. And she had learned something more profound. Humans were not weak, they were remarkable. And in that knowledge, Kayla felt a quiet confidence that would carry her through the battles yet to come. Kayla and Ethan stood on the rocky plateau overlooking the canyon below. The wind whipped across the jagged rocks, carrying with it the faint scent of dust and ozone from the planet's thin atmosphere. Kayla's muscles, though stronger than they had been months ago, ached from the previous day's exertion. She welcomed the pain. It was proof of life, of recovery, of progress. Ethan adjusted his scanning device, frowning as he studied the readings. "We're not alone," he said. His voice was calm, but the tension in his posture betrayed the seriousness of the situation. "Sensors are picking up multiple life signatures approaching from the east, large ones, organized." Her mind raced, recalling the battles she had faced before her paralysis, the disciplined strikes, the strategy, the ruthless efficiency, her people. "They've come for me," Kayla said quietly, her jaw tightening. The thought of facing her own kind after everything, after being abandoned, stirred a mix of fear, anger, and determination. "They think I am weak. They will learn differently." Now she would combine all of that with her warrior instincts. As the first shapes of her approaching people appeared against the horizon, Kayla could see the armor glinting in the fading light. They moved with purpose, weapons at the ready, scanning for her. Their confidence was palpable. They believed she was vulnerable, that she was still the broken warrior they had abandoned. How wrong they were. Ethan led her to a narrow pass, the jagged rocks providing natural cover. He began setting up energy snares and automated deterrents, small devices designed to disorient and delay attackers. Kayla studied his methods closely, noting the subtle ways humans used the environment to their advantage. She remembered the lessons from the scavenger encounter, the power of traps, misdirection, and timing. When the enemy forces entered the pass, they were met with resistance they did not anticipate. Energy pulses and sparks erupted from hidden devices, slowing their advance. Kayla, fully standing and moving with confidence, guided Ethan and coordinated their responses. Her voice was sharp, commanding, blending her alien authority with human tactical thinking. The first wave of attackers tried to flank them. Kayla anticipated the move, positioning herself to block the path while directing Ethan to trigger another energy trap. The attackers fell into the snare, stunned and disoriented. Her people hesitated, surprised that she was not only alive but capable of such strategy. "You've changed," one of the approaching warriors shouted. "You are not the weakling we left behind." Kayla's mind moved quickly, calculating angles, predicting movements, and directing Ethan with precision. She used her recovered strength and mobility to intercept attackers, throwing them off balance, while Ethan's technology created barriers and diversions. Together, they became a coordinated force that even Kayla's own people struggled to comprehend. Her heart, long hardened by betrayal and battle, felt a strange mix of adrenaline and clarity. Every movement was precise, every decision deliberate. She was no longer just a warrior. She was a strategist, a leader, a fusion of alien instinct and human ingenuity. One particularly large warrior broke through the defenses, charging directly at Kayla. She met him head-on, using her momentum to sidestep, twist, and throw him against the rocks. The impact echoed through the canyon, and the attackers around them paused, reassessing. Kayla's combination of raw strength and clever tactics left them unsure how to proceed. Ethan continued to provide support, launching calculated pulses and creating diversions that kept the enemy from surrounding them. Kayla noticed the small details, the way the light glinted off armor, the patterns in their steps, the hesitation in their attacks. Humans had taught her to observe, to analyze, to use the environment as an ally. Now she applied it flawlessly. The battle raged, but gradually Kayla and Ethan gained the upper hand. Her people, shocked by her resilience and the clever traps, began to retreat, realizing they had underestimated her. Kayla's chest heaved, her body pushed to its limits, but she did not falter. Every step, every move, every decision was proof that she had grown beyond the limits they had imposed on her. When the last of the attackers withdrew, Kayla stood atop a small rock outcrop, surveying the retreating forces. She felt a surge of triumph, but also a quiet reflection. Her people had thought weakness meant defeat, that abandonment was a way to weed out the incapable. They had not realized that true strength could come from resilience, adaptation, and learning from others, qualities humans possessed in abundance. Ethan approached her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You were amazing," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You didn't just fight, you led, you adapted, you survived." I never imagined I could do this," she admitted. "Not like this, not with someone else guiding me." She realized now that all those victories, impressive as they had been, relied solely on raw power and instinct. Today, she had fought differently. She had combined strength with strategy, instinct with observation, and resilience with trust. She had learned a new kind of power, and it was terrifyingly effective. The night fell and the stars emerged, casting silver light across the rocky landscape. Kayla and Ethan set up a temporary camp, securing the area with automated devices and keeping watch. Kayla's muscles were sore, her body exhausted, but her spirit was alive in a way it had not been for months. She felt a deep sense of accomplishment and an even deeper sense of potential. Ethan worked quietly beside her, checking devices and monitoring the perimeter. Kayla watched him, noting the careful precision in every action. Humans were not naturally as strong as her species, but they had other strengths: creativity, observation, patience, and persistence. And when combined with her own abilities, those strengths became formidable. Kayla's thoughts turned inward. She had been abandoned, paralyzed, and left to die. Yet, through the guidance and support of a human, she had not only survived, but had grown stronger, smarter, and more capable. She had learned the value of trust, of patience, and of combining different kinds of strength. She had learned that true power was not just in muscle or skill, but in the ability to adapt, to learn, and to collaborate. As she settled for the night, Kayla felt a quiet resolve forming within her. Tomorrow, she would continue her journey with Ethan. Together, they would face more challenges, explore more unknown worlds, and confront more dangers. She was ready, not just to survive, but to excel, to demonstrate the full potential of her regained strength, and to honor the lessons she had learned from humans. The stars twinkled above, silent witnesses to her transformation. Kayla's body and mind were no longer broken. She had reclaimed her power, reshaped by adversity, strengthened by human ingenuity, and tempered by trust. She was a warrior reborn, ready to face the universe with a new understanding of strength. Ethan looked at her, sensing the shift in her demeanor. "You're ready," he said softly. Tomorrow will be another test, but I have no doubt you'll handle it. Not alone, but with a partnership forged through trust, resilience, and shared purpose. The canyon below lay quiet, the night deepening around them. Kayla closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the strength in her body, the clarity in her mind, and the steady presence of her human ally beside her. The battle of today was over, but the greater challenges lay ahead. And for the first time in a long time, she felt ready. Because true strength, she now understood, was not measured by raw power alone. It was measured by resilience, intelligence, adaptability, and the courage to trust others. And with that strength, Kayla was unstoppable. The stars above stretched endlessly, a silver sea of light against the blackness of space. Kayla stood on the edge of the ship's deck, her legs steady and strong, her body fully healed and honed by months of recovery, training, and experience. She had come a long way from the paralyzed warrior who had been left to die. Now she was more than her former self, a fusion of alien instinct and human ingenuity, a living testament to resilience, strategy, and adaptability. Ethan stood beside her, scanning the planet below. "Sensors are picking up another patrol," he said calmly. "It's small, but they could be dangerous if we let them surround us. Are you ready?" Her voice was steady, full of the quiet confidence of someone who had survived everything and grown stronger for it. "Let's end this." They believed that she was still vulnerable, that she could be intimidated into submission. How wrong they were. Kayla stepped off the ship, her body moving with the grace and power of a warrior at the peak of her abilities. Ethan stayed close, monitoring the surroundings and ready to support her with human ingenuity, traps, and technology. Together they were a team, a combination of raw power, strategy, and creativity that the enemy could not anticipate. The patrol appeared, moving quickly through the canyon. Kayla recognized their formation immediately, a classic military strategy, aggressive but predictable. She grinned slightly. Humans had taught her to observe patterns, to think ahead, to anticipate every movement. Now she would use that knowledge to her advantage. As the patrol advanced, Kayla activated a series of devices Ethan had set up. Small energy pulses flared along the ground, temporarily stunning some of the soldiers. Others tripped over hidden obstacles, thrown off balance by the clever arrangement of the terrain. Kayla moved swiftly, intercepting the first wave, her strength fully restored, her movements fluid and precise. One of her former comrades, a towering warrior named Rathan, charged directly at her. Kayla met him with calm precision, sidestepping and using his momentum against him. He crashed into a rock formation, stunned. She could hear the shock in the voices of the others. They had underestimated her, as humans often did, and now they faced the full force of her regained power, sharpened by strategy and enhanced by observation. Ethan moved beside her, deploying small energy fields and creating distractions. Kayla noticed how well he adapted to the chaos, adjusting his tactics in real time. The human's strength was not in brute force, but in adaptability and cleverness. She realized that this was the final lesson she had been learning all along. Strength alone was not enough. True power came from combining abilities, from understanding the environment, and from trusting others. The battle intensified. Kayla used her regained mobility and sharp instincts to outmaneuver the enemy, while Ethan's devices disrupted their coordination. One warrior attempted to flank them, but Kayla anticipated the move. With a swift strike, she incapacitated him and then directed Ethan to block the others with an energy pulse. The teamwork between human and alien was seamless, a blend of instincts, intelligence, and timing that was unstoppable. Rathan recovered and charged again, more cautiously this time. Kayla met him head-on, parrying his blows with precision. She could feel her body moving in perfect sync, each muscle responding instantly to her mind's commands. The training, the recovery, and the months of learning from Ethan had transformed her. She was not the same warrior who had been left to die. She was stronger, smarter, and more formidable than she had ever been. Ethan shouted, drawing the attention of another group of attackers. Kayla used the distraction to gain higher ground, pushing her enemies into tight positions where their movements were limited. The patrol, once confident, now struggled to regain control. Kayla could see fear and doubt flicker in their eyes. They had faced her once as a powerful warrior, but now they faced something different. A warrior who had adapted, who had learned, who had grown beyond their expectations. Kayla's focus sharpened. She moved like a shadow, striking only where necessary, avoiding unnecessary violence, but ensuring that every move counted. She was precise, efficient, and unstoppable. The enemy tried to regroup, but their strategies were predictable, and Kayla anticipated every maneuver. Her mind worked as sharply as her body, a weapon in its own right. Finally, the last of the enemy fell back, retreating into the canyon. Kayla stood amidst the quiet aftermath, her chest heaving, her body still alive with adrenaline. She had survived, she had triumphed, but more importantly, she had demonstrated that strength was more than raw power. It was intelligence, adaptability, and collaboration. Ethan approached, his expression a mixture of pride and relief. "You did it," he said simply. "You've grown beyond anything I imagined. I've learned a lot from you, from humans. Strength is more than power, it's strategy, trust, and patience. You've taught me that." She had faced abandonment, paralysis, and betrayal, yet she had risen. Her body had healed, her mind sharpened, and her understanding of strength had expanded. She realized now that her survival was not just about her own abilities. It was about collaboration, about learning, and about embracing new ways of thinking. As the night deepened, Kayla and Ethan prepared to leave the planet. They had secured the area, gathered resources, and ensured that the remaining threats would not follow them immediately. Kayla's body was exhausted but thriving, and her mind buzzed with new possibilities. Before stepping onto the ship, Kayla looked out over the canyon, the place where she had faced her former comrades and tested her new strength. The wind carried the faint echo of past battles, but she no longer felt fear or anger. Instead, she felt a quiet pride. She had not only survived, she had transformed. The ship lifted off smoothly, rising into the night sky. Kayla stood beside Ethan, gazing at the stars. She thought of her people, of the battles she had fought, and of the human who had saved and guided her. Her perspective had changed. Humans were not weak or fragile. They were clever, resilient, and capable of extraordinary things. They had healed her body, strengthened her mind, and taught her lessons that she would carry forever. Ethan looked at her, noticing the resolve in her eyes. "The universe is vast and dangerous," he said, "but I know we can handle it. Together." She was no longer a victim, no longer defined by her past injuries or the judgments of others. She had reclaimed her power, reshaped it, and enhanced it through partnership and learning. The universe awaited, full of challenges and opportunities, and she was ready to meet them all. Ethan prepared the ship for the next destination, but Kayla remained on the deck, staring out at the endless stars. Each twinkle reminded her of the possibilities ahead. She was not just surviving, she was thriving, evolving, and growing stronger with every experience. Kayla reflected on her journey. She had been abandoned, left to die, paralyzed, and helpless, yet she had been saved by a human who saw value where others saw weakness. Through patience, ingenuity, and trust, she had regained her strength, learned new ways to fight, and discovered the true meaning of resilience. She felt a deep gratitude, not just for life, but for the lessons she had learned and the partnership she had formed. Ethan had shown her that strength could be shared, that intelligence could enhance instinct, and that survival was only the beginning of growth. The ship sailed onward through the stars, carrying them toward new adventures. Kayla stood tall, fully healed, fully empowered, and fully aware of her own capabilities. She was ready for whatever the universe had in store, stronger, smarter, and wiser than ever before. For the first time in her life, Kayla truly understood the value of humanity. Not their weakness, not their fragility, but their determination, creativity, and willingness to act when others would not. She had been reborn, transformed by human guidance and her own resilience, and she knew that her story was only beginning. As the ship disappeared into the night sky, Kayla felt a deep sense of peace and purpose. She had faced the impossible, survived betrayal, healed from paralysis, and embraced new strengths. She was a warrior reborn, ready to face the universe with courage, intelligence, and unwavering determination. And as the stars stretched endlessly above, Kayla knew this. Strength was not measured by survival alone. It was measured by the ability to grow, to adapt, and to rise stronger than before. And in that measure, she had surpassed all expectations, her own, her people's, and even the universe's. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with dangers and challenges, but Kayla felt ready. She had reclaimed her power, learned the value of trust and collaboration, and discovered the extraordinary potential of humans. Together with Ethan, she would explore, protect, and thrive in a universe that often underestimated them both. And so, Kayla's story continued, not as a warrior abandoned, but as a human-guided, fully realized force of resilience and ingenuity, ready to face whatever lay ahead with strength, strategy, and heart.